What is the definition for you for generational wealth?
In my mind would be a situation where my kids are set up financially speaking for next 3 generations, because that's the last generation that will probably ever think of me. For me, like if it's like my thoughts or feelings is I don't have to think about money as any level of concern, and anybody who comes after me would probably feel the exact same way. So whoever I'm leaving that to.
Alex.
Kenny.
Finally, we got you on.
We did it. Finally, months of working towards it. We made it happen.
Alex and I were talking. He was like, "Do you have any questions or this?" I go, "Dude, I just like the flow." And I was like, "Wait a minute. The name of your company is Flow. The name of your podcast is Flow State." And I just like the flow. So, Alex, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
I'm fired up, man. I'm just so excited to be a guest on your show. You brought it. You came onto our show there a few weeks ago. And the feedback that I got from all the people that listened to the information, the education that you provide is phenomenal. People are reaching out and raving. And so for me to have the opportunity to share what's going on here in Canada down to your audience is it's very exciting. And I can't wait to hear what kind of questions that you have as well.
Yeah, as we were talking earlier, we hear about other markets, like China's in the news or Canada, and people go, "Oh, did you hear about this?" And I go, "Yeah, but it's the news." And it's hard to trust the news, right? Because it's the news. And so first of all, before we kind of get into your market and stuff, if you can kind of give everybody just a background on how you got here. I know you've been in the business a while, what exactly you do. I know you're a mortgage broker, but just kind of give us a quick background before we jump in, so everybody knows like who's talking and what you're all about.
Yeah, well, first of all, we're kindred spirits in the mortgage game, as you clearly know. And it's wild for me to think that I've been in the game for a while, because I feel like I got blinked yesterday and I just got into this thing. I got licensed in 2011, so not quite as long as you, but when I got licensed, it was a time when the market was pretty stagnant where we are up in the Vancouver area. We had just come through, as you know, a little bit of a ricochet or the echo effect of the US financial crisis slash crash. And it was really just stagnant for years up here. So 2011, for the first couple of years, for me was just a discovery to figure it all out. Things really took off for me after 2015 when I took my business exceptionally seriously and really put myself into a better mental state, which is really just a big part of what we do and my business, or our businesses as a whole. But what I find interesting, to kind of think about where we're at today is just the different experiences I've had in different types of markets from 2011 to 2015 to 2019 to 2020, and then obviously where we're at right now. And now today I can sit down and I can actually unequivocally talk to someone about history because I've seen a big chunk of it, and I can actually repeat, hey, here's where we're at. So today, Kenny, to answer your question, I got a team here. I'm a mortgage broker in Canada. I was part of a much larger team. I was one of the owners for about 4 years. We were number 2 in the country for the last 3 years, and really just needed to make a change. The vision wasn't the same. The mission wasn't the same, and I wanted to get back to my core. So I stepped aside from that team and launched this company the start of this year. We've got 5 team members that are exceptionally devoted. And our mission here is really simple. It's to help people have a better relationship with money through mortgage finance. Now, just like you, I think this is why we got along so well, is because we both agree that real estate is an exceptional path to creating financial freedom and creating wealth. But, through discovery in the last number of months, not to get too woohoo or anything like that, I just found that one of the biggest issues is that most people just have a really crappy relationship with money, bad experiences, bad life experiences. And for so many people, that's propelled them to where they are today, to maybe not having the quote unquote financial success that they want to have. And so I make it my mission to help try and to improve that relationship so that people can do better for themselves.
It's funny it's kind of funny because you and I are very aligned, because I literally talk to people like this all the time. Is everybody has a different relationship with money. And I don't know if I stole this quote, but I kind of came up with it one day, and I might have said this on your show. So if I'm restating, but I always say is, if you don't have a plan for your money, it will have a plan for you. Because especially in the day and age we live right now, it's if money's just sitting there and it's not doing anything, trust me, there is a lot of creative marketers and people that are way smarter than us that are like, let me get it. I want that money. I want to get in your bank account. I want to get in your credit card. I want you to buy this. You need that. You need this, all this crap, right? It doesn't matter if you're where you are or I am. It's true. Like, I think everybody's relationships is different with money. And that's, I think, goes to with relationships. You see marriages, one person wants to invest, the other doesn't, and it causes conflict. So kudos to you for like having a passion of that, because I think we need more of that in this world. I don't think people, I'm kind of going on a rant here, but this is a true story. So when I had Grant Cardone on, I told him, I said, hey, I went to your 10X because my friend invited me in Miami when it was really big. And I said, I wanted to tell you my favorite part of it. There was somebody was speaking. They had one sentence. He goes, oh, who was that? I said, it was your daughter. He's like, wait a minute, what? I said, the person that moved the 30,000 people was your daughter. And she kind of said something like this. I think she was 7 years old. And she said, why is it that I noticed that something as I gotten older, and she's 7, and she says, is that we go to school, we learn, then we go to college and we learn. And when we get out of school, we stop learning. And she says, good. Why is that? And she says, so I encourage all of you today, my last message to you before I leave is to please don't stop learning.
Powerful, man.
And so that goes back to
doing this.
That's what I go back to you is what's the passion? Like the passion is nobody like they spend time on Netflix and the games and everything else, but they literally won't spend an hour, maybe an hour a week just to say, what should I do with my money? So let's talk about your mindset around money. Like, because let's go back, like, where is this passion coming from? You know, like I always say, like, there's a reason why you're doing this.
Well, I mean, I mentioned that I started this in 2011, and I've only really just, the way that I look at it is like we've been on a journey, right? So a business journey, a life journey for the last 10 to 12 years. And honestly, man, it's only been the last year that I've really been able to unlock the second kind of mental state of this, how do I impact people when it comes to how they think about money? For the previous 3 to 4 years, it was, okay, how do I help people create money? But now that I've brought that together and the initial mission together, it's really felt like it's coming around full circle. And so it kind of makes me think back to just generally speaking where people are at is you have to meet people where they're at. And for a lot of folks, they're not in the place where they want to go out and build an empire of 25 or 30 or 40 buildings or whatnot. They just want to get into their first home. So I guess to answer your question, like, where does this all come from? This comes from personal experience. This comes from working with over 3,500 families and hearing the same things over and over and over again. And then asking myself the question, what is the difference between these quote unquote 1% people that just seem to figure it out and these other, like, what's the difference and what's going on here? And the reality is I just kept noticing over and over and over again, it was just the behavior, the way that they would speak about money, the way that they would talk about opportunities, the way that they would get interested or excited. And here's the thing. A lot of people have this just this mindset that you have to be some kind of engineer or analytical genius to be able to have success financially and have this crazy level of commitment and crazy level of self-discipline. And that's not actually the truth. Now, if you want to have, top 0.01%, perhaps that is the case. But most people don't need to have that extreme level to be way better off than they are right now. They just need to start thinking about all of this in a different way. And here's the messed up thing. Like you just said, we go to school, we learn, we go to college, we learn. But what do we never learn about? Money. Never. The only person that teach us about any money, we talk about this all the time, are banks and our parents. It's the only two people that talk about money, and maybe a teacher in economics class who has a conversation about it, but we really have no idea what the hell he's talking about because we're hungover or whatever's going on, right? So looking back, okay, I actually knew what he was talking about, and I probably should have listened to him. But why is he still teaching? What's going on here, right? So not to say anything poor about teachers. We need them in the system, by the way. But what I was going to say is that I just realized that most people's bad experience with money is because the person before them had a bad experience with money. And so they just keep passing that down and down and down. Listen, Kenny, I grew up with very little. When my parents split up, my mom went on welfare. My dad wasn't making any money. And I spent most of my youth on the streets, like literally living on the streets for a little bit, moved up and down to different cities and locations. And, my parents, worked very hard and they put clothing on my back and they loved me. So it wasn't a lack of love or anything like that. But it's just I didn't have much, right? And so it was always this scarcity mindset of like, oh, we just need to keep what we have. You gotta clip coupons. You gotta just stick every single penny away. Like, don't spend it. Get it on sale. Like, don't invest money. That's scary. Like, don't do those things. And so the reality is I didn't come from a place of people who understood this. And so because they had such a bad connection, that spilled over to me. And man, this didn't even click for me until like I said, 2015, 2016 is when it really started to click because I started meeting these people and saying, what is this guy doing differently? what's that guy doing differently? What are these guys doing differently? They're not that much smarter than me. What are they doing? And they just looked at money as essentially like a vessel, like an opportunity. Hey, this is just something that I'm going to put here, and here's what's going to happen. And if I do this, then this could happen, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, I can't let go of it because I'm not going to have anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was looking for right there. That's where it's from. That's where we were recently at a mastermind and Erwin was talking. He's like, and I was talking to Krystle too about, why do we do this? Why do we help people? What's your brand about? Who are you about? Right. And it's like, no, and Krystle was like, no, you got to go back to your childhood. Well, where is this coming from? Right. And that's where it is for you. The passion wasn't the mortgage. It was like, hey, I don't want people to go through what I had to do.
Yeah.
Because somebody could be winning and they could lose it all by bad financial choices, by mismanaging money, by not understanding how money works. And so you are passionate because you're like, I really, really want to help people so they don't have to go through what I do. Maybe that's what it is.
Definitely. And I tell people all the time, it's like, Kenny, like you and I, we live and breathe the mortgage and the real estate world because that's what we do. And we're probably just genuinely interested in like, how do we learn more about it? But I'm not obsessed with mortgages. Like I don't love mortgages. I just love the opportunities that it's created and the ways that you can do things that can create these different levels of dreams. Like, I could probably do this in a variety of different careers and still have success. Now, I understand it to a very high level at this point, but the reality is I don't think anybody really loves mortgage financing. We just realize what kind of doors it can unlock and how to start moving down these different webs of opportunities, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, even Matt at UW has said like, nobody really likes mortgages. Not that we don't like them. It's nobody really likes getting a mortgage. It's like, do you like going to the dentist, but somebody has to fix your teeth. And so somebody's got to get you a loan or talk to you about, your financial situation or help you out by the house, the property, the commercial. So yeah, I agree. It's not, and it's fun to help people and fun to watch people get in the house and win and make money. The process is just, it's just not a fun process, but you got to go through it.
Love it. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So let's just get into it because what the cool thing is you've been since 2011 and, the Canadian market, I think, I think it's pretty much what I'm going to say is right. If I'm not, you'll probably correct me. Wrote a blog saying that the US was not the biggest booming market. We got out boomed by, I think, Canada and Europe and stuff. Like you guys have, boomed us more. And people are like, wait a minute, what? I go, yeah, we're not. You guys have had some serious growth in Canada, like insane appreciation. A lot of people coming in from other parts of the world, I'm guessing, buying real estate. And let's talk about today. How is the market as we sit here and talk today? What is going on up there? And, what's the temperature on on the market?
Well, you make an interesting point. So the US and Canada are correlated heavily, but there's a few key fundamental differences. First and foremost is geography. So in Canada, most people are situated in two major areas, like Toronto and surrounding areas, which is a major city, and everybody's heard of it, obviously, and Vancouver and surrounding cities. Now we have obviously other cities like Calgary and Edmonton and a few others across the country. But the unique thing about Canada is that there's just so much population densified around these core areas. And so it's really interesting because, and it's probably to a degree like this in the US, but like every region has almost like its own climate, but it's governed federally as if it was all the same. So there are some major challenges that are associated with that. In Canada, the provinces don't have as much power as the states individually do in the US. Like California has way more power than British Columbia as a province does, right? To affect change. And so a lot of the issues are trying to be dealt with from a federal level, which cause a whole bunch of problems. But so between 2020 and the first half of 2022, as we saw, you talked about booms, we probably saw higher booms in most areas of the Vancouver and Toronto market than most cities of the US. It's similar trajectory, but just an extreme level. And just like what happened in the US, once the banks started increasing interest rates, well, what did we see? We saw the same sort of thing happen where people stopped selling their properties and stopped buying properties and everybody was scared. And then the market fell kind of off of a little bit of a mini cliff last December. Well, what was interesting is we saw the run up again with one big change compared to the US. We saw the run up again in the Vancouver and Toronto markets. And I'll talk about some of the other markets in a second here. In the beginning of this year, all the way up until the summer. And there were some supply shortages because people obviously didn't want to sell and they didn't know what to do. And they're like, where do I go? And so we had that issue continue as interest rates continue to increase. What's been interesting to note is that you mentioned immigration. So where does that come into play? So we're not just seeing things go up just purely because of, well, I guess the demand side, but just like you have probably in the US, we just obviously have lack of supply, but immigration is insane. Like we saw over 1 million people come to our country, which of a country of like 40 million people, to have 1 million people come in a year is a lot. Yeah, that's a massive number, right?
That'd be like you're getting 1 million people. That's a lot, you know?
Yeah. Well, remember this is that most of these immigrants go to like 3 to 4 major areas too, right? So they're going to Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and then like there's a little bit of sparsity after that. So you just see this massive group of people come to like 3 cities. And then it's like, okay, well, not only do we not have enough supply for the people who have, now we don't have enough supply for all these people, for rentals, for anything. And it's created like a complete level of crisis. So what's interesting to go on that rant a little bit more is that they suggest that there's been at least 500,000 underreported people that have entered our country. So they're thinking it's actually closer to 1.5 to 1.7 million people in the last 12 to 18 months, not including undercounted students and all sorts of stuff. So there's some major issues going on there. Now, listen, I'm all for immigration. I'm very, very open to it. I got no problems with any of it, but you need to seriously consider where the hell you're going to put all these people if you're bringing them all into your country. So we have a housing issue. We have a supply shortage. We have rents that are going, like if you think rents are going up in the cities around you, like look at the Vancouver area.
I hear stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And so what's also being masked is the fact that where the building is occurring, as we know, building is 4 to 6 years behind always, right? Where the building is occurring is the wrong type of building. So we've got a whole bunch of people now that are like millennials, and they're like 25 to 35, and they're like, hey, we want to move out and buy something. And what is everybody building? 1-bedroom condos, studios, this type of thing. Well, they don't want to put their family in a studio or 1-bedroom condo.
Wow.
So we're under, yeah. So it goes on and on and on and on. And so the last few years have shown that basically long and short of it is most of our governments, including obviously what's happening in most major cities, have underplanned, underbuilt, overregulated, and provided no real outlet to be able to change that. All while at the same time, just like you've seen in the US, the Bank of Canada has been increasing interest rates, which has put an insane amount of pressure. And now the most popular product in Canada for 2020-21 was not a fixed rate. It was actually a variable rate mortgage.
Yep.
And so guess what happens is that now everybody's just paying interest and their payments are going up by double or by 50% or whatever. And so that's causing now financial stress, plus all the same stuff, inflation and so forth, which is causing more than enough stress in the marketplace. So you've got this kind of like ugly storm of like not enough housing. Housing's too expensive. I can't afford my house, but where do I go? And it's been interesting. I would say the last point on that is that in the US, you can sign like a 30-year fixed mortgage. Well, we don't have that here.
I was gonna talk about that. Like I wrote that down. Like, oh yeah, I don't think people realize. Yeah. So let's. I want to talk about that real quick. I was literally gonna ask you. That was the next question. You read my mind. What do you have for products? Like, let's just go through. What are people putting into first time home buyer experience? Is it ARMs, floating rates? I mean,
yep. Yeah. So like, because again, most people go with what's the least expensive. And to a degree, we trust what the government says. Our federal government, our prime minister came out in 2021 and he said, take out mortgages, borrow money, spend money because rates will be low for a long time. It's plastered everywhere.
Wow. He said that. Replayed. That is crazy.
I'll see if I can dig it up and send it to you. It's not too complicated. Just look up like Justin Trudeau 2021 promises low rates.
Wow.
And so obviously that didn't happen, right? So back to your question. Your question was, what do people typically take? So a lot of people took variable rate mortgages because they believed them, because why not? Myself included. We're like, hey, well, what's a worst case scenario historically? They'll probably start raising rates soon. They didn't, which caused a whole other series of issues. But no one anticipated rates to go up 4% because they kept telling us over and over again, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, you kind of trust, well, you should never trust your government, but we can say that. So most people take a variable rate mortgage or an adjustable rate, which is a floating payment. Payment goes up or down. We also have this other product where basically the amount of interest that you pay goes up, but your payment remains the same. That's caused a whole other series of issues because now you got 100% interest mortgages all over the place. And then you have a select few people who signed up on fixed rates. The max you see people typically do is 5 years. So what happens at the end of 5 years? Now this is another reason that there's a lot of people out there trying to, propel change, is at the end of 5 years, your only option is to take whatever the bank gives you. So they can basically got you by the short and curlies. They'll give you whatever rate they want, or you have to requalify if you want to move to a different lender or a different product. But the qualification rules in Canada are substantially more strict than in the United States as well. And so a lot of people are going to be stuck with whatever they get.
Wow. It's interesting because that's what I tell people. Our problem here, as you know, is I can't say now, but coming out, like, let's just say as of, 2022 and rates before they went up, 95% of the mortgages are on fixed rates. So here in California, I'll just give you a scope. So out of all the houses, single family are just owner occ, 42% are free and clear, 58% that are mortgaged, 92% have a 5% or less, 75 a 4% or less, and 30% have a 3% or less. But those are all 95% of those are fixed rates. So the government screwed up here where they locked everybody on low rates. You guys could have had the same problem. Everybody's locked on low rates. They're not going anywhere because rates are up. It doesn't make sense. Very, very few people did a adjustable. Why? Because in 2008, 35% of people were on adjustable rate mortgages coming into that recession. And the government said, those are terrible, those are bad. And the media killed it, which honestly, a lot of people, went away from that. Most people that do ARMs out here are probably more like jumbo bars, a little more sophisticated, smarter, understand, but it's only 5% of us. So Europe, Canada, and other countries, like yourself, you guys are in that problem where when the inflation went up, not only did everything else go up, but you guys are getting hammered on your payments. So most people here in the States that have these low rates, they're not even feeling inflation as much because their biggest payment is lower than it ever been. So you guys are experiencing and that's what I think people in the US understand. We have it really, really amazing here, these products we have.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really unique. And I know that creates a whole series of other issues in regards to people not wanting to move because their rates are low, even though they should or they want to. It's so interesting to even think about it from that perspective because, we do have a little bit of that here where people are like, hey, I've got 3 more years at this rate, but it's only going to last for a couple of years. And then they're on to their next rate or product or so forth. So that's creating some unique challenges. But you asked where are we at today. So where we're at right now is November of 2023. I hate to date this, but if this comes out later, that's fine.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Interest rates, the overnight lending rate is 5%. The average fixed rates are 6 to 7, depending on the term length, 1 to 5 years. And we're actually in a buyer's market now, which is different than I know a lot of places. Now, this is Vancouver and Toronto. It's funny because I'll talk about another province in a second here, but Vancouver and Toronto are dealing with major issues with regards to with people closing on homes. They're walking away from pre-sales. The builders, now this is going to be a whole other issue. The builders are saying, I'm not going to build right now. Why would I build? The cost of land's too high. The cost of mortgages are too high. So they're just putting a stake in the ground and saying, we're not going to build right now. So that's another supply issue for the future.
It's happening here.
But what's actually wild right now is the opportunity is really good for a buyer, incredibly good. But guess what's happening? Ain't nobody buying because everybody's afraid of interest rates right now, which blows my mind because I'm actually I am actively looking to buy right now. And I'm looking at this and just licking my chops because I saw what happened last December, and last December, exactly to a T, same thing happened. And the value was great. And guess what happened in March and so forth is everybody started seeing prices go up. But not only that, there was just nothing to pick from. Now you got lots to pick from. You can negotiate, you can get dates, and the prices are low, and take a 2-year fixed or a 3-year fixed or something like that, and then just negotiate in a couple of years. So it's a great time as a buyer. Now, I was going to mention the other province thing. So the one thing that's been really interesting, because again, we're talking about Canada here, Kenny, and that's a big place. Yeah. The one city that's bucked the trend is Calgary. For some crazy reason, while every other city has been going down in value and seeing, not significantly, but slight decrease in value, and seeing trends focus more towards the buyers, Calgary has seen migration, interprovincial migration, and immigration nonstop come to that particular city, and it's become kind of a little bit of a new hub, if you will. So that's, if anybody is looking at
that because oil prices are good, or?
Well, Edmonton is closer to where you would be looking for people who are closer to the oil, which is up north. Okay. Calgary is south in Alberta. A lot of it, man, there's a political consideration, a lot of people who are, still have the negative effects of what happened during the COVID thing. Calgary's a lot more, or Edmonton's, or not in Calgary, but Alberta's a lot more open, if you will. They're not, canceling people's jobs. And with people who had fear of that, they all kind of moved their way over there. Cost of real estate compared to like Vancouver is like half, or like 50% to get something the same is substantially. Quality of life is still really high. So a lot of people have moved there for that reason. And I think it's just kind of all ricochet effect. We're now seeing, tech companies and other companies move into the downtown core because it's a lot less expensive and it's a great hub. And so we've just seen this crazy amount of migration and immigration to that one city. So that's been the one place that has bucked the trend.
Wow. So yeah, you guys there's a lot of stuff going on there. Would you say, how's the overall economy? I'm seeing like the US right now. The reason why I'm mentioning this is, my prediction is that interest rates are here. We've got a little pullback, but the consumer seems to be cracking here a little bit. Credit card debts are high, savings rates way down from pandemic. Consumers definitely starting to pull back. All the small business owners I talk to seem to say the same thing in the last few months. A lot of the people I've listened to on CNBC, like US Bank that has 40, 50 million customers, they're seeing that. Target came out, they're seeing that as well. So I'm starting to see a consumer slow down here, where all that free money that we got here is starting to slow down, which might lead to soft landing, hard landing. But I'm seeing the consumer crack. So I know, okay, less spending equals less production of jobs. Less production of jobs means we need less people. And, we're probably thinking we're not going to hike anymore. So we're going to be moving into maybe a slower market, AKA maybe a recession or hard recession, and then a Fed pivot to pause and then rate cuts. And then I think that rates are going to start coming down. How are you guys seeing it up there?
Yeah, I mean, it's really similar in regards to what you're saying down in the US. Like, across the board, obviously increases in interest rates has put pressure on everyone. Inflation has kind of hit, like, I wouldn't say it's hit a max. It's probably still a concern in a lot of different areas, but it is getting to the point where it's caused a squeeze virtually everywhere. We are seeing layoffs heavily in the tech sector. I think that's just North American at this point. So we've seen a lot of layoffs in the tech sector. And transparently speaking, like, the real estate market as a whole is a massive industry in Canada, whether it be real estate agents, mortgage financing, but all the industries behind the scenes that support real estate. I could go on forever on that, because we're down virtually 50% from 2022 at this point right now in terms of transactions. It causes pressure in those areas. So you've seen less money virtually everywhere across the board. And yes, you are seeing spending go down. You are seeing a lot less investment, and people are losing their savings. We're also, on our team, we built a program. It was positioned towards helping people open up their cash flow, meaning different type of cash flow you're talking about. We're just trying to help people have more monthly cash flow by looking at different ways to utilize either debt repayments or through mortgage refinancing or alternative or secondary loans or things of this nature. So many different options, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, to just try and make sure people keep their homes and reduce the amount of stress, because, I just talked to one of my great clients, 2 days ago, yesterday. And, he reached out to me a month ago and he was like, man, or 2 months ago. And he says, dude, I can't do this overtime anymore, man. He's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore, dude. I'm so stressed out. Like, I'm barely making ends meet and we're struggling to just put food on the table right now. And like, I can't imagine the amount of people that aren't comfortable to make those calls. And from what I've gathered in the last few, weeks now, we're starting to see more and more people hit that point. Now the credit card bills are coming in. Now it's interest only payments. Now it's all these different things. And it's like, okay, how much more can you take? So there's no doubt that that's going to start to have a ricochet effect in the entire economic market everywhere from top to bottom. And it's true that it's going to impact real estate, housing, and everything else that goes along with it. So yes, we are seeing it. And the people that are waving their hands and they're really excited are the alternative private lenders. Obviously, they're running out of money. And anybody that has to do with credit consolidation. Everybody else is kind of like, this sucks.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it's kind of like, I kind of feel like the party's over. And I feel like, let's see, 2020 was printing money, low rates. 21 was printing low rates. Beginning of 22 was the Fed waking up here going, oh shit, inflation is out of control. We went too far. And now we got to slam on the brakes. And we're going to be tough and we're going to just keep, raising. 23 comes where they start softening a little bit, raise less. Now we're at the end. They're realizing, oh shit, did we go too far? Which they probably did. And now 24 is probably going to be, what I'm seeing is, instead of keep looking at the rear view mirror and the, what in the data, now they're going, okay, if we went too far, we got to start looking forward because they're seeing what you just went through, what I went through. And so 24 is probably going to be about a pivot and cut. But, and you know, what you're talking about is if people cannot sustain at this level, I think sit here and think about, okay, we're going back to money. What is going to help them out? Low rates help out.
Yep.
You can refi, pay off some debt consolidation. I mean, when you look at this scenario and somebody calls you, is it the same for you guys? Is, well, I can't give the guy more money in his pocket from the government. He's not going to do that. But the only thing really is like, you got to get these rates down because they're killing people.
Yeah, I mean, it's that. And people are starting to tap out on equity too, right? Like some of these folks bought their homes in 2021, 2022 when the market was really hot. And in some cases, they don't have, there's no more, like there's equity in the home, but you can't borrow more than 80% of a property's valuation up here. So not with a mortgage you'd want at least. And so there are limitations. Like, you know, I've got many clients that reach out to me and, okay, no, you've already used 80% of your equity, or you just don't have that available. Sorry, the 20% available. You've got nothing left. Like we can't take anything out of your house. So you've got to look at this as an option first and start to make some sacrifices. And for some people, there aren't any options and they're just going to have to just get out of there or rent out their house and move on. Like there's just so many different things that you have to consider. Listen, I think at the end of the day, like the hard part is like, I don't want to get completely down in negativity. There's also people that are still.
No. Yeah. I wanted to move on because as I'm just coming to the realization that this is my point is real estate is getting into this first. Like we usually tend to get whacked first.
Yes.
In a recession, rates tend to go low. And this is when opportunities come, right? So that was the next move is.
I love it.
Because I don't want to be doom and gloom, like you said. So let's go into, all right, there's a pivot coming, rates start coming down. You know, it's going to give some relief to borrowers because we know it's going to have to. You cannot go off of that low to this high and maintain. You're going to kill everything, and everybody knows that. So in Canada, I know here, where do you see the opportunity for a first-time home buyer, a real estate investor? Like, what are you going to be focusing on probably in the next, moving forward after we kind of get through this pain point where I think it's just going to be the pivot point for, okay, like we're either going to break the system or you're not. And I don't think everybody's going to break they're not going to bankrupt everybody. So
yeah, listen, I think it's regional. So I'll focus a little bit more on the region that I live and work in more than anything else. And in Greater Vancouver or surrounding cities and so forth. And I think if you have the capacity to do it, the biggest opportunity right now in the Greater Vancouver area is to buy single family homes and land specifically. We don't really have a ton of accessible multifamily like you do around you. Like just there's just not much of it around here. But there are new zoning bylaws that are being pushed, and they're going to be starting to be passed in the coming years that are going to allow duplexes and triplexes and fourplexes allowed on lots where there haven't been for 30, 40 years. What's also super unique, I don't know if it's like this in San Diego. I don't think so, but maybe it is. The unique thing about Vancouver, for anybody who's never been there, just look it up on a map. So like when you fly into the city, you fly in and there's like a little parcel of flat lands called Richmond. You head over to Vancouver itself, and it's kind of on a little island. And then you've got the North Shore. So and then there's mountains. So everybody's like, oh, mountains. Yeah. So the mountains stop you from building. You can't go any higher. Right. And then you've got the ocean on the other side and all around you pretty much. And then you head out the valley east, where once you get about an hour and a half out, it's mountains again. So you can't build past that. So we're completely locked in. We're completely landlocked in. And yes, there is land, but what's also interesting is we have to have agricultural land. We've got to keep that. And there's a lot of pressure, obviously, in many cases to sell it, but they've got to keep the ALR. There's parks everywhere. There's tons of you can't build on around the rivers and all the stuff that we've got going on around here. And so the land value is the one thing that is going to continue to maintain and grow as time goes on in that Vancouver market, in that area. And that is very unique, as I mentioned, to Vancouver. Maybe there's other cities that are like that, but I mean, it's the one thing that's been proven time and time and time again, that if you can buy as much dirt as you can, you're going to do pretty well. Now, I mean, from a rental perspective, I mean, yeah, you're going to try and find a property that has a rental up and a rental down, and you're probably just going to do your very, very best you're going to do right now is probably break even on a property like that. But I do truly believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, those equity in those properties is going to go dramatically higher. And as I just mentioned before, the rental rates are not going to be going down anytime soon. They're only going up with the amount of people coming in and looking for rent. It's like you've got 30, 40, 50 people lined up to try and rent a 3-bedroom place because there's none of them available, right? And so I do believe that single family homes, especially in East, are great. If you're more of like bullish on Vancouver, because I had a guy named Adam on my podcast a few weeks ago, and he has a very, very, very successful podcast in Vancouver, and he's studying this stuff inside and out. If you're downtown, there's some incredible opportunities to buy strata, like condos. And yes, there's buildings going up in Vancouver, but not enough and not fast enough. And so you can buy condos in Vancouver for $699,000, whereas 2 or 3 years ago, those would be something like $850,000, $900,000 for the exact same units.
Yeesh.
So yeah, if you can buy and hold, strata units, that's another place where they're going to go up. And if we just talk about rental rates, if you're downtown, like it's stupid, like it gets disgusting at that point. But there's just nowhere else to go because it's a little island. That's it. They're only going up, and they can only go up so fast. Right. So that's the unique thing about the downtown market. So that would be the 2 areas if someone was looking at that point. For home buyers getting in the market, man, I mean, like subjectively speaking, it really depends. What's interesting, we talked about the wealth transfer. That's a totally different conversation. For most people, it's like, just get in where you can get in, man. Like just get on that ground floor. I just helped a guy named actually, I shouldn't say his name, but I helped a client of mine just a few weeks ago through his second purchase, but he bought his first home in 2021. Right, his first property at like literally scratched and clawed into the market for like $330,000. It was the only thing available. Wow. And then 2 years later, even in a down market, he just sold it for $90,000 more. And now he's able to leverage up to live substantially closer to where he wants to live. And he just helped his mom get into buying her first home too, which was really, really cool by doing that. So I just tell people, I'm like, listen, get in, man, wherever you can. Obviously, do your due diligence on the building, but make some sacrifices.
We've been working on this for the past few months.
We always want to bring as much value as we possibly can, and our partner, Prime Corporate Services, is all about bringing you a service you can't get anywhere else at a price you can't get anywhere else. Whether you're new to owning a business or owning a property, or you're an experienced property owner or investor, Prime Corporate Services is not only going to help you, but they're going to make the process so much easier. So if you book a call, the first thing they're going to do for you is help you understand what your business structure should look like, your corporate structure, tax planning, estate planning, all of that. Maybe you're saying, I'm brand new to starting a business and all this sounds foreign and complicated. Remember, this company helps new people just getting started every day. They're going to help you form the entity that's best for you and walk you through the process. Before I found this company, we paid thousands of dollars to other attorneys, CPAs, and consultants to try to understand exactly how we need to be structured to be as protected as possible. We've also gone the other route and used online platforms to form entities which unnecessarily put us at risk. You guys, you don't have to do that with this company. They'll do all of these things for you at a reasonable price, so you never have to think about saving money at the expense of exposing yourself to liability. We've searched high and low, and you will not find this much value anywhere else. All you have to do is schedule a free call today. Just go to primecorporateservices.info/GITCG. Once again, that's primecorporateservices.info/GITCG. We'll also leave the info for you in the show notes.
Yeah, so we do have that same thing here in San Diego. We call it the 4 walls. So we've got the ocean, we've got Mexico, we've got Camp Pendleton, because you can't build on Pendleton, which is the military base, but separates us from San Clemente, Orange County. And then to the east, you've got the mountains. So we are landlocked here too. And then the same thing, we just don't really have the room to build anymore. So they're actually having to, tear down things and stuff like that, especially in more urban areas. So yeah, we're similar in that way. One of the things I was going to say is I wanted to ask you, okay, I know you guys don't do the 1031, and I know that's kind of a bummer for you, but I've heard this, and this is pretty crazy. So I want to confirm this. You guys do have something that's pretty amazing. And I think I'm right, because I met a guy that came here to San Diego. He bought a house, fixed it up, whatever, built a house there, and he sold it and made a lot of money, like millions and millions and millions. And if it's your owner occupied house, you don't have to pay any capital gains. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, they're working really hard at trying to limit that. So like if this guy made millions, I don't know where he's buying. It's got to be a pretty substantial house. But
no, it was. Yeah.
Okay. So and he probably rode the market up, but
oh, for sure. No. But he just said here he'd have paid in California, he gave half of it away. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like you guys can write off your mortgage expense on your primary residence. We can't. We have a capital gains exemption, which allows us, if you live in your home, you have to live in there for at least a year and claim it as your primary residence. So it actually has to be your place of residence where you live. If you do that and then you sell your home, as of right now, it's exempt. Although they're really coming down hard on that. They're watching for people that do this every year. Like there's been articles about people that have done it like every year for 3 years. Well, eventually the government and the CRA step in, which is the Canadian Revenue Agency. They step in and they essentially say, no, you're going to pay tax on this because you're doing this for profit. So it's kind of like, yes, you can, but you're eventually going to get clamped down on if you keep doing it over and over again. Otherwise, you're taxed 50% of the gains on anything that's an investment. And yeah, we don't have many exemptions for taxes here. That's for sure.
Yeah, no. But that was one thing where he made the money. He actually sold a business up there and moved down. So he was there for 5 years. He loved it, but he's like, man, he made a killing. He rode the market up and he was like, yeah, he brought all the money down. He was stoked, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And listen, we have some clients who do that, and it is legal. Like there's nothing illegal about buying a property, fixing it up, or just riding the wave. Like it's your money as of right now, at least. Hopefully that doesn't change. We'll see. And so on accident, we've seen people become, and it's the same thing in the US, like become accidental millionaires because they buy a home and they sit in. And that's another reason we tell people, like, just get in the freaking market. Just get in, buy a house and level up, because that's where people are doing that quote unquote trade up. Well, you trade up, you're getting the profit from it, and you're able to leverage that to second home, 3 homes, 4 homes, whatever, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So let's kind of pivot here to investing there. I know we kind of talked on it. Because you deal with real estate investors, I think you invest yourself. What is kind of I know down when we did an interview, there's a lot of options. The states have so much more. We have a robust lending, let's just say system here between banks and the government and all this stuff, right? What is kind of there's a commercial market, the residential market, people you work with, investors, big, small, whatever. What is what are you looking at up there? Returns? How does it work in Canada? What do you guys focus on? Kind of give us the lay of the land, if you would.
Wow. I mean, it's no different than the US in many ways, in the sense that there is a commercial market, there is a residential market, there are multifamily markets available. It's just that it's in different areas.
Yep.
Like, again, being where I am relatively close to the Vancouver area, you don't see a lot of people doing like multifamily. At least you need a lot of cash to do multifamily here. So it's pretty limiting for most people. You can do it, just limiting. You definitely see people doing commercial purchases and so forth. But I would say like your average, like relatively amateur or residentially focused investor is purchasing, as I mentioned before, condos and single family homes and things like that. It's an interesting market, man. And one of the things that I've learned is that like people in Canada, or people from other countries who come to Canada treat the real estate really much as like a commodity that's just sold and purchases left, right, and center. And what people do here on the West Coast is they play the appreciation game, which is honestly just it's like a gamble. So what we often see people do is there's like a hype around things like pre-sales. So when we see pre-sales launch when the market gets really hot, right? And so they pre-sell a building, and you're buying these basically shares or assignments in properties that you're putting down 20% or 10% of the future value, and they might be built 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And so you'll see an entire building sell out of quote unquote investors. And then if the market works in your favor, like it did in 21, 22, you sell these things before completion for hundreds of thousands of dollars more, and they're not even registered. So in some places, previous to now, they weren't even paying tax on that, which was wild. But what's happened now is you see the cracks in that. So like the last few months, we've seen all these pre-sale properties actually come up for completion, and people can't even complete on them, man. They can't complete on these condos. They can't complete on the townhomes. They can't complete on these houses. They don't have the money, or they're getting second mortgages and private loans and all that kind of stuff just to hold on to them for a while, because you can get sued if you don't complete. Some people are walking away, and well, the developer is going to say, yeah, we're going to sue you because you just bought this for, $500,000. And I don't care if it's worth $400,000 today. That's what you said you were going to pay. So we're out $100,000, right? So like, that's a lot of like the culture of what we've seen. And I don't know why that's the case, other than just like the hype train. I mean, if you look up real estate investing as a whole, it's become so much more popular in the last 4 or 5 years. Maybe because of the low rates in 2021 or 2020, or maybe who knows, social media. Hard to say. But I mean, like smart investors, like I think the smart investors right now are the ones who are doing what I just mentioned. They're all looking for, hey, how can I do even a joint venture where it makes sense to buy some land? Can I do some subdivisions? Can I, maybe I'm a little bit not there yet. Can I partner with somebody who knows how to build, and I can bring in some cash or some capital and learn what they're doing and see what that looks like? But I think it always comes back to a long-term play, man. I tell people the way that I invest is just boring as shit, because I look for single family homes that are in areas that I see growth potential, and I just wait and wait. I mean, buy them and wait, just let them sit for a long time. So I think it comes down to how much time, how much energy you're putting in and where you're at. One last note is we saw a huge rush of people trying to buy short-term rentals in the last few years. And well, BC just, the provincial government just came out and just overnight just said, boom, you're no longer allowing short-term rentals unless it's your primary residence anymore. Yeah. So if it's not your primary residence, you're not allowed to do short-term rental anymore. And so they basically just devalued hundreds and maybe thousands of properties overnight that people, because a lot of cities had designated short-term rental zones. Yeah. So you're allowed to in those areas. Well, all these people that paid probably an extra $100,000 for these properties, maybe $200,000 more, their property values just went down like a tank. And so there's the repercussions of that. And they now just said a short-term rental is considered 90 days or less, not even 30 days. So there's a whole other submarket which is getting beat up too. So, and there's just so much out there. So I say people's like, what is the one thing we know is going to work? Well, land, dirt, buy that if you can, hang on to it, rent it out, and then you can make a decision if you want to waver into the other waters of other options while you're out there. At least it's always a relatively safe option for most families.
Yeah, you guys are going through a lot of change too. I think there's just a lot of, like it's almost like the same thing, government overreaching on things. It's like, why would you come out and just ban it? You're just, it's just killing it, So let's wrap up here. This has been great, honestly. Real quick, Vancouver's isn't that the most expensive, crazy? It's I know I've never been there. Isn't it expensive, crazy? That's like super, super expensive part of Canada, right?
Yeah. So, for real estate, it's Toronto and Vancouver are the two most expensive ones to live in. But here's the thing, man. If you're coming from the States here, your money is worth 150% of our money. So it's expensive, but it's funny because, all things are relative. And so if you have a US dollar or you make money in US dollars, we've seen a lot of people that work in Seattle, that they want to move up to Vancouver because they love it up here, and they'll work remotely from Vancouver to Seattle for two reasons. One, their money goes way further. Even though it's expensive, it's okay, well, this is probably similar to Seattle, but we like it more. Because of the mountains or whatever, I guess. I don't know. I've talked to a bunch of people. We've helped them buy and they just seem to like it. We've seen a big trend of that going on. But yeah, it is a really expensive place to live. And there's no doubt that there's a lot of value in it, man. I grew up in the surrounding areas, not downtown, but in this half hour away my entire life. And you take it kind of for granted a little bit, but there's a lot of reasons people want to move here, man. There's a lot of reasons. And there's no reason that it's going to fall off the earth anytime soon. It's just people just keep wanting to come, and they come. They don't want to leave, right?
Yeah, I've been to Calgary, had a client there, and we went around. I forget that big park we went to. Is it Blythe or whatever? Is that what it is? I might have been screwed that up. That natural park down there, but it was beautiful, beautiful country up there, beautiful. I've got two more questions for you. Number one, if somebody wants to learn more about you, if they're going to move to Canada, they need a mortgage broker, or they want to pick your brain because there's a lot of people moving or interested there. What's the best way to reach you?
Well, just like you, I spend way too much time on Instagram talking to people. I love it. So because you can talk to people heads on, I think people should, if they're interested in the Canadian market and the economics like you, they should follow me at The Mortgage Pug, which definitely is somewhere they should check out. Obviously, my podcast, if they want to see what's going on north of the border more so, and we have some similar conversations, but a little bit of a different approach up here. They're trying to figure out how the money game works, how boring works. US to Canada. So if somebody's moving up from the US or they're interested in buying, there's definitely some unique challenges associated with that. Thankfully, I've worked with a lot of them, so I understand what to look for. I would highly recommend just setting up a call. So just go to the website, which I'm sure you can put in the show notes. So toss it in there. But if they want to follow me up, send me a DM on Instagram. Always happy to talk to somebody.
Awesome. And then last question I always ask, and can't wait to hear your answers. What is the definition for you for generational wealth?
What is the definition of generational wealth? Well, you did not set me up for that one. So thank you. I guess there's probably the technical answer, which would, in my mind, would be, and I'm just guessing because I don't know, I've never looked it up, but the technical answer for me would be a situation where my kids are set up financially speaking for the next 3 generations, because that's the last generation that will probably ever think of me as, or they probably won't even think of me, but something of that nature. For me, if it's my thoughts or feelings is I don't have to think about money as any level of concern, and anybody who comes after me would probably feel the exact same way. So whoever I'm leaving that to, that's probably my reason. I think that I would be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and focus more on the joy and the opportunity that's provided by just life and everything around me, versus having to stress or think about waking up and getting money every single day. You know what I mean? I'm in a unique position though too, man, because I don't have kids yet. So it's an interesting concept to think about, just because for that reason, it's not something I don't think about that standpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. Alex, it's been fun. Honestly, we dove into the market, understanding it's funny. There's a lot of similarities and there's some stuff not, but we're neighbors of states, but I appreciate the time.
Yeah, man.
Good to dive in with
Both
you.
surf different ways.
Yeah. You're surfing up there. He's got the surfboard in the background. We've talked about wetsuits before, cold water. Your temperature gets way colder than ours, so I'm not even going to complain. We're here in sunny San Diego, but appreciate the time. It's been fun.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Kenny. Appreciate you, buddy.
You bet. All right, dude.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. I just had to be my next call is 11:30. I just want to do a little prep before the call.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, thanks for doing that, man. I appreciate it. I hope some of it was insightful.
Oh, dude,
there's a lot of information.
It's cool to just hear about a whole another country, another market. It's kind of funny. We have there's definitely some similar political BS we deal with, and especially California more than that. Our country can be very divided. That you can go to one state, it's rent control, all that stuff. They're like, it's no problem. You can do whatever you want. You go to another state, it's like, you're not doing anything.
Yes. Yeah. It's interesting, man. Cause obviously I listen to a lot of the stuff that's going on down there. And there's certain times where the market's like just tied or like going together. And there's other times where it's like totally divergent. Cause I'm hearing a lot of guys saying, well, there's no inventory. And I'm like, oh, we're having the opposite effect right now, which is interesting because we were having no inventory. Now we have tons, but nobody wants to buy just because they're afraid. And there's just like this fear mentality right now, man. So that's at least. I know. I'm trying to set, like my wife and I are trying to make decisions. I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, Kenny, I don't know if it's like you, we're not making as much money right now, right? So we also have to be conscious of that. So
no. I'm right there with you. Yeah, your business is down. How long is this going to go? So you'd like to do some investments. You also got to be like, I'm running a business. I got this. So you want to keep dry powder in case this goes longer than we know, because the government really is kind of, they dropped rates and then they jacked them up. We don't really have control of that. So yeah, you got to kind of hustle a lot more for that dollar. That's for sure.
Definitely, man. Absolutely. 100% agree. Well, listen, thank you so much again, man. Appreciate you for taking the time to connect with me. And I look forward to continuing to chat and partner together, brother.
Awesome, brother. Have a good day. Thanks.
Oh, can I ask you to send the summary afterwards?
Yeah.
Did it work or did it work? Oh,
well,
don't worry about it.
Oh, I don't know.
Future reference, if you're using Zoom, hit the little summary button and it actually will send you this pretty badass summary of your meetings, which I've been using for all sorts of stuff for clients. It's made my life so much easier.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Check it out.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They might be able to. Mara might be able to do something. So I'll let you know.
Sweet, man. Okay, buddy. Have a good one.
Have a good day.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
If you're already a real estate investor, you know that aside from cash flow, you also get huge tax benefits by investing in real estate. But are you taking full advantage of all the potential tax benefits? We've been working with Tim Looney at CSSI for a few years now, and he's saved us and our clients hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in taxes doing cost segregation studies on their properties. Let me give you a few examples. We bought a property in 2019. If we had just used straight line depreciation, we would have saved about $18,750 in taxes. But because we did a cost seg, we saved $258,000. That's $239,350 more than standard straight line depreciation in the first year. The other great thing is, if you're classified as a real estate professional, you can apply this to other sources of income like W-2 or 1099 income, and you can also roll over any unused depreciation to future years. If you've owned your properties for a few years already, don't worry, you can still do a cost seg and save big on your taxes. This is not tax advice, so consult your CPA to see if you qualify to take advantage of these benefits. Call or text Tim at 318-469-9861 to get your complimentary property analysis. Once again, that's 318-469-9861. And I'll also include his information in the show notes. You guys don't want to miss out on these tax savings.